While we're waiting, I did learn this week that when you're looking at hurricane intensification forecasting, they use a system called the Deterministic to Probabilistic Statistical Rapid Intensification Index, which sounds like something Willy Wonka would make chocolate with vaguely.
I have to agree. I think Willy Wonka had something to do with that.
Matt, I want to know if you were reading that or you memorized that. Because if you memorized that, I'm very impressed.
I was in fact reading that one, unfortunately, Councilman.
No, there's got to be an acronym for it. We got to have an acronym for that, right?
There is. It is DTOPS.
DTOPS?
DTOPS.
That's funny. Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry I'm not done on my video going. I'm in between leaving my class and getting to a place where I can put my video on. So I'll be listening intently.
Not a problem. Let me tell you, the picture you got, everybody's enjoying it. Don't worry.
Yeah, right. Probably time for a new one.
You look pretty professorial in it, though, I tell you.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, Mr. Mayor, I see the mayor's joined us. Let's call the meeting. Call the meeting to order, and I'll bring a few words. Let us pray. Eternally Father, as we come before you, we ask for special prayers and keep the people in harm's way of the very storms that have gone through in your embrace. Help the needed assistance be timely and readily available, and look out for those who have been injured and their family members. We pray for our staff, our committee, and the city as we go about doing the business of the people and trying to do it in a very efficient manner, and help us bring the best of our abilities as we go about making the crucial decisions on behalf of the people we represent. These prayers we ask for in your name, let us all say amen.
Amen.
All right. Do we have approval of minutes? We're down to item B, approval of September 12th minutes. The motion?
So moved.
Second.
Probably moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Acceptance and dedication, temporary encroachments, Mr. O'Brien.
Mr. Chairman, we have 5 encroachments. 4 of them are pretty standard. The last one I want to point out, 3065 Beast Ferry Road. There's some work that's being done in connection with a project over there, and we've worked with Stormwater to ensure that they're okay with this, and they've reviewed the request, and it's basically for some work around one of our drainage easements for some head walls and a driveway, and we've worked with Mr. Holton and Benji Smith, and they've reviewed and approved that, so we were therefore recommending for that encroachment.
Thank you. Item G, environmental services update.
Mr. McCleary,
Councilman Shea, I'm sorry.
I just want to note on item F4, that was my old office building that I no longer own. So I don't have a conflict of interest with that anymore.
Mr. Chairman, on environmental services update, I'm going to ask Matt if he can share his screen to kind of give you guys an update. You know, we told you from now on, every 2 weeks, we're going to kind of let you know where we are with trash and garbage. And we've got good news today, so I'm going to let Matt share it with you.
All right, Mr. Alltop, you're up.
All right, it should be coming up here. So Tom wanted me to come on and brief you guys on trash and garbage, where we were and where we're at. So as you can see, I started tracking this when we were having our issues with trash and getting everything completed. The first week we started, it was the week of July 25th. You can see that we only completed 62% of our routes that week, and only 45% of that was on time. We have made big improvements since the last 2 weeks. The 12th, we were at 100% and 100% on time. And last week we were 100% complete and 83% on time for trash. We had to run 4 routes on Friday that we only finished about 80% on its scheduled day. Garbage has been complete 100% over the last 2 weeks. On time, 94 for the first week and 97 for the second. We are having to supplement 4 routes a week right now with Trident, as we have 2 of our ASLs down So they have been filling in. We have received one of those units back from the shop. And we anticipate the next unit hopefully will be ready by the end of this week or first part of next week. And then we can move away from those contracted areas.
Any questions from committee members?
Well,
Councilman Shaheed and then the mayor.
Well, we never get a call from our constituents saying, hey, thank you. You're running on time and completed the whole project. It's only when we don't do this and we get the phone calls in, Matt. So
Yep.
I haven't been calling you. So that's I guess is a good thing.
Yeah, and I can tell you that, I'm in contact with Brian Sheehan and his department too, and the number of calls in that department have dropped significantly as well. So we are definitely seeing improvements.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, you had your hand up?
yeah, I just wanted to thank Matt and Tom, particularly Matt, for this effort over the last couple of months to right the ship and get caught up, and now to stay caught up. And I know he's had a few different challenges, from equipment to hiring to, so thanks, Matt, for hanging in there and getting us back caught up. I would urge you, even if you need to stick with Trident for a few extra weeks to help you with the garbage, so that if that gives you some more capability on the trash side to keep this up, for a sustained period, so everybody gets used to it again. Please do that. I think it's important to now be consistent for a while, and we thank you for all your efforts.
I appreciate it. Yeah, our plan is to make sure that we stay consistent moving forward. We are actually seeing an increase of applicants too, so hopefully that'll continue, and we'll be able to get some employees in here. We actually hired two weeks ago, and we got another one that will be starting next week.
Great.
So we are making progress there as well.
Great. That's great news. Thank you.
I wanted to thank you all as well. Mr. O'Brien, you had something? I saw your hand.
Chairman, just two quick things. Matt mentioned this at the start of the meeting, but some people may not have been on. We're going to start stand-back operations on Wednesday morning in anticipation of Hurricane Ian, and information from Jack's office and the PI will be getting that information out to everybody. But it'll be the standard operation, 10-bag limit, bring your own shovels. We're providing the sand in the bags, and we're staffing from 8 to 6, correct, Matt?
Yeah, that's correct. We'll staff at 8 to 6. We'll have 5 locations. One is partnered with the town of James Island. It'll be at their town hall.
And the other thing, Mr. Chairman, I wanted to mention is Matt and I were talking the other day is we did earlier this year. We want to reward all our crews for their hard work. So we're planning another appreciation lunch for them, and we'll keep you all posted. And hopefully you can join us for that.
That'd be great. That'd be great. Councilman Shaheed, I see your hand up.
Thank you. So where would the other locations be for sandbags?
So right now we don't have, we have one that we're still working on. They are going to be at Governor's Park on Daniels Island, right there by the dog park under I-526. Bees Landing Recreation Center on West Ashley. There will be one at Hampton Park, right there by Ashley, in that little parking spot right there by the ball fields. And then the one that we are working on is at Grace Bridge, right there next to the cigar factory. We're still waiting for approval from that. Lee Bailey is working on securing that. If we are unable to secure that, we will go to Harmon and Herbert, which is up higher on the neck for sandbag location.
If I can make a suggestion, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Number one, to make sure we publicize these as early as possible. And the other thing is that in my experience with these distribution points, is that the locations of these, while they are staffed by different members of city staff members, there's really nobody out there sort of leading and directing this. And when we were using the Sumar Street site as one of these distribution sites. There was a lack of coordination, and I went out there just to observe and see how this was all taking place. And I would just recommend, Matt and Tom, that you've got somebody out there with a little bit of authority and a little bit of clear direction, because traffic coming in and out of these locations can cause a little bit of a headache and some frustration as well. So my experience with doing these things is just to have somebody out there that you can count on, who's going to sort of be a take charge kind of person.
Yes, sir.
To do
Yes,
that.
sir. We are going to have our streets and sidewalks department man the sites, and I have 3 supervisors that will be going around to all of them to make sure on a rotation that they are being ran like they're supposed to be.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, good. Again, great job. What do y'all attribute getting caught up to? What were you able to do now that obviously you didn't have, a month, 2 months ago?
Employees, we had 5 guys that were out on FMLA, and we started getting those guys back. So that
Okay.
was able to see a huge difference. I mean, you can see by that chart, as soon as we started getting the guys back, the stuff started coming.
Okay.
And then we had a battle with some claws there for a while too, with that stuff being down, and the parts finally came in. So that stuff is up and running finally as well. So
The trucks, the trash trucks that, have one man operating, the newer ones with the big boom on the back. You didn't know this was coming, but approximately how much does one of those cost?
So the new one that we just bought is 230,000, 232, I think is the exact price. But that is one man. You don't have to leave the cab.
Right.
Yeah, that truck is actually out on the road now that we bought. It's we're training our second employee on that truck this week. So it's out on route and being utilized every day.
Yeah, I've seen it. Actually, I've seen the one that tried it has in action. How many of those trucks? We only have one of them?
So we have one of this version, but we have 4 of the older versions that you have to get out, climb down, and then climb on the back.
Okay.
We are working with on our replacement plan on phasing that equipment out. So hopefully you should see some of that stuff maybe come through the budget maybe next year. I think I don't know how many's in the budget for next year, but there are some.
And one last question. When it was last week, I happened to be coming through little shopping center in West Ashley that has a dry cleaning to it. And behind the it's stripped, these little bays with 4 or 5 stores in them. But on the back portion, all of them had green trash cans. And I noticed our trash lady, who happened to be a lady driving the truck, picked up. And the way the property is situated, they can't get to it with the mechanical arm. So she actually had to get out the truck, roll the can, to enable that to happen. And she had to do that about a half a dozen times, about six cans out there. But it was a commercial entity. I didn't realize we had to do that for commercial entities. In my office park, we got a dumpster and we pay a commercial person to come out here and do it.
Yeah, that's one of the changes that we have in the ordinance, is requiring a lot of these places that can get dumpsters to get dumpsters just for that reason.
Right, because I was thinking, just look how long it took her. She could have been on her route hitting these houses.
Yep.
Versus, a commercial guy that's frankly being cheap doesn't want to get a dumpster.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah,
Mr. O'Brien. Yes, sir.
One thing I wanted to add also is, Matt and I monitor our local government radio in our vehicles, and Friday afternoon late, we had crews working, and I just, it would do you guys and ladies proud to hear the teamwork, people checking with other routes and everything when people finish. These guys and gals, they just don't go home. They're out there helping each other. And I was very proud. And I told Matt this morning about a couple of people individually who heard asking if people needed help. So they understand the importance of their mission. And it really makes me an honor to work with these ladies and gentlemen up there in Matt's office.
I'll tell you what, I saw Councilmember Lewis Saturday, and he told me that his trash got picked up on a Sunday. I was kind of like, geez, I didn't realize how people out there working on Sunday, but anyway. Good job. Thank you so much. Mr. Fountain, each one, check valves.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the first couple items are related to each other. The first one is recommending approval of the actual construction contract to install two check valves basically at the Washington Street area. The contracts discusses Union Pier quite a bit because that's where the check valves will actually be going in, but it's to address the tidal flooding in the Washington Street area near the entrance to Union Pier. The contracts with BNC Utilities, $365,800 as one of these check valves is a very, very large check valve. The second item relates to the second component of the item, which is that the project will be cost shared with CWS, reimbursing $100,000 due to the improvements they get from sewer performance by not having standing water in the area. And then the South Carolina State Ports Authority has also agreed to reimburse $100,000 towards that installation, with the city, of course, contributing the remaining $165,800 from our actually our stormwater drainage fund, which has a line item for check valve installations each year.
Move for items 1 and 2 to be approved, Mr. Chairman.
Properly moved and
Second.
seconded. Sounds like a lot of good work there, Mr. Fountain. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, all, or Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Chairman and everyone, I just want to let y'all know, thanks to Charleston Water Service for their participation. They've done this before with us, but also wanted to share that when I called Barbara Melvin at the Port Authority about cost sharing this with us, she did not pause. She did not hesitate and immediately said that they would share this cost with us, and it's on their property as well. I'm sure we have an easement, but it's part of the valve actually goes on to the Union Pier property site. So anyway, I just want to publicly thank Barbara for her participation.
Listen, I couldn't agree more. Any other input? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Item H3, Church Creek, Mr. Fountain.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is a fee amendment with Biohabitats on the Church Creek contract. So again, this is an amendment where we're adding new services to the contract, which is to provide construction engineering inspection work on the Bridgepoint Ecological Park project, as well as the Wolf Drive project area. And then we're adding in some additional design services for the Bridgepoint Ecological Park, one taking it all the way to final design and permitting, and then two, adding in a few park-like amenities. So basic preparatory work for a playground, bringing water and sewer and electrical stub outs in for doing some site lighting, doing some design work for bridges and kind of an improved walkway corridor. And that's in coordination with the Parks Department, who will likely come behind us and install those as the project gets towards construction.
Mr. Pleasure Committee, we have a motion. Councilman Bowden.
So move.
Councilman Bowden, seconded by Councilman Shaheed. Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Spring Fishburne, Mr. Fountain.
Mayor's got his hand up, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, I didn't see it. Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Chairman, the item we just passed is right along the lines of our Dutch dialogues, thinking that we always try to include amenities and do other purposes for our citizens along with our stormwater projects. And Councilmember Bowden, this really is kind of a direct result of a community meeting we had out in Shadow Moss about the project, and everybody's excitement that we have a city park in addition to handling the stormwater out there. So anyway, a lot of citizen input went into this, and I think rightfully so, and it's right along with the lines of all the Dutch dialogues work we've done.
Councilman Bowden.
Just to expand on that a little bit, I've heard from, I mean, you can't even believe how many people who, say things like, we've been asking for a playground out in this area for 30 years. And we're, kind of checking off that box with a major stormwater project. So, really, I think this is going to be a really great amenity for folks out here. And there's a lot of excitement about it.
Sounds like a good deal. Let me ask this, is there any drawings on that can be pushed out to council members, how it will look when it's finished?
We do have the, Mr. Chairman, we do have the, like the plan view of a landscape architect's rendering of what the site
Right.
will look like. We haven't yet finalized with Jason what the play sets will look like, but the locations and the overall layout of the site are available. I can send that over to you, certainly.
That'd be great. I think push it out to members of council. I don't think all of us know about that. That's great. I mean, I knew some stormwater pieces were going in there, but to make that combination, that's great use of that space. All right, now item 4. Well, wait a minute, we got to carry this, right? I
We
think it was
voted
moved
on
and
it.
seconded. We voted on it? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Now we go to item H4, Mr. Fountain.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is a Spring Fishburne item. It's approval of a fee amendment with Davison Floyd. It's basically for the developing an electronic security and operations monitoring system for the pump station infrastructure. We're also building this in a way that it's expandable out to other city pump stations as those get retrofitted or come online. But it primarily is perimeter security, and then internally to be able to monitor what functionality the pump station has, if contractors are present, if employees are present, and make sure that our investment stays secure and functional.
Okay.
That's within the existing project budget, Mr. Chairman. It's just the next step within that.
Okay.
Move for approval.
Properly moved and
Okay.
seconded. Any more discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Discussion on areas of high risk of significant flooding. I had my discussion last week, have a little bit to say today, but let me defer to committee members first. After we had our discussion about areas that in particular flooded during our recent rain on high tide, have any of you all had a chance to go through some of you all's districts to see if that in fact was a similar situation? Councilmember Bowden, I see you not in agreement. You're on mute.
Well, I think kind of going along with the last discussion, the issues out in particularly the Church Creek area are well documented. But so I won't belabor that point. I've had a conversation with Matt about things that can be done there, and be coming to some of y'all to ask about getting money for some of those things. But the Pierpont area off of 61, I didn't realize quite how bad that flooded, and it's a strange area because it's one of these areas where if you walk on one side of the street, it's county, the other side of the street, city. The legislative delegation's gotten involved with solving some of their issues. So bigger issues than I expected out there. So I appreciate you bringing this up so that I could kind of push out this question to folks, and gotten a lot more feedback than I thought I would.
Okay, well, some of those addresses, not now, but I mean, some of those addresses that you are familiar with, it'd be good to kind of bring them forward. Because let me say this. I'm saying this because I think it may be with money and obviously manpower. I mean, we got the know-how with Mr. Fountain and his team. And we just got to find a way to get more money to do this, because those are some of with money and manpower and obviously easements. In some of these areas that I'll talk on, we already have the easement. It's a matter of the money and the manpower. And your suggestion at council about increasing the small budgets allocation, I think it's spot on, but I got to be frank, it's going to take a lot more money than $1 million or $2 to do these things from, West Ashley, James Island, and even some of the areas on the peninsula. So anyway, that's our thinking as we go about preparing for the budget. That's kind of so those addresses, I'll be providing a list of addresses as well. Some of these have been areas that commercial entities has put on residential areas. And I believe if I thought, Mr. Mayor, it was 4 or 5 years ago, I'll say this, it was when his cabinet was here. I thought we passed the ordinance that would allow a certain amount of time to go by, and some of these existing shopping centers, they have to come in compliance with stormwater, retaining stormwater on their properties before releasing it into the public system. And if that is in fact not the case, then I sure hope our legal minds can put something together, because right now the system is still the same, and a lot of it West Ashley, in the doo-wop area, it's just a timing. And we need bigger pipes, ditch, and then a timing piece, because all these commercial areas, the older ones, have no retainage of water on their properties before it goes directly into the system. But I see Councilman Seeking's hand up, and then Council Lady Parker. So I'm gonna go in that order. Councilman Seeking.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just very briefly, first and foremost, I mean, if we look at our district, District 8, on a high tide and a rain, literally it's all of it that floods. And I want to say a couple of things to Matt and his team. I think that since I've sat in the seat and represented District 8, the responsiveness and the attentiveness that they've brought to areas that are known to flood has been great. And some of these smaller projects, and putting some pumps in and putting some check valves in and putting in some piping has really worked. So I think the small projects approach, when you go out in your district and you observe some areas, get with Matt, put them on notice, and let's get after it. But that being said, we can't lose sight of the big picture. And for District 8 in particular, but it really is for the city and for the region, we've got to think about the big sized projects. And one of those, and to me, and this is no news to you, Mr. Chairman, or probably anybody listening, is Calhoun West. And we just can't lose sight of that, how we've got to get after that project. And now is the time. And it's such a regionally important project. It can be done in phases, but until we know exactly what it looks like, it's very rare that a council member can tell you how many acres his or her district is, but I can tell you how big District 8 is, because it effectively is the footprint of the Calhoun West Drainage Basin, which is right plus or minus 900 acres. So big project, going to take big money, big planning, but we can't put it off. So Matt, thank you for all you've done on the smaller end. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Frank Newham too. I mean, they are out there in rain, wind, high tide, moving water, and it's effective, but it's not a long-term solution.
I agree. I couldn't agree with you more. I when I said, Mr. Fountain, that I think we have one of the best engineers in this area, this side of the Mississippi, I meant that at the last meeting. I think I'm not alone in that. Our question is a matter of money, manpower, and I think we already got the know-how. We know it needs to be done, but we can't pay for it. And we got 13 people, the mayor, obviously 12 council members. That's our job to figure that part out. Councilwoman Parker, I see your hand. You're on mute.
Thank you. Thank you.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes.
Sure.
And I was hoping I'd be back at my computer by now, but I'm not. So I'll just go off memory. So the ones in question for me, we have some areas, obviously Battery Island Drive. That's been a big one up for discussion with, we've met with the state, SCDOT, the county, but Battery Island Drive, those those ditches, those culverts are just compacted. So this coming week is a perfect example. If we get a high tide, heavy rain, I mean, that road is gone. The ditches are, there's nowhere, the water can't even get into the drains if they wanted.
All right, thank you, sir.
So we have that. We also have areas on Secessionville Road in Westchester neighborhood. When you come up around the corner of Secessionville, I have pictures, and like I said, I have a list as well. I'm not sure where that should be sent. Should that be sent to you, Mr. Chairman, or
I think
Mr. Fountain?
I think you sent a copy to Mr. Mayor, Mr. Fountain, and myself. I think that would be, and the whole committee, frankly, the whole committee. Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And then we've had some concerns with Signal Point Road as well. And I know the next two I'm going to say, I think, Mr. Fountain, we've talked about, there is an ongoing maybe project that's slated for that area that might not be this year, maybe next is what you told me, but either way. So that area, that's around the Bohemian Bull, Signal Point Road, where the PSD offices are, I believe. And then we also have, I apologize, it's totally slipping my mind now. I know those were the three big ones, but yeah, like I have the list as well and addresses. So I'll be sure to get that over to you, but I completely agree with you, Councilmember Waring. I think it's just the manpower. I mean, those ditches, of course, I'm not an engineer. Maybe Mr. Fountain can answer this, but like I said, I think Battery Island Drive and that way around the curve up around Grimble to Secessionville Road, that we just have those ditches that just are completely grown over, so maybe it's just a manpower situation over there, that if we can get those dug out, we might have a little relief, but thank you.
Okay. Well, yeah. Thank you for doing the due diligence in your area. Councilman Appel, any other, Councilman Shahid, do y'all have any thoughts or input on that?
Well, thank you, Chairman Waring. And I think that Matt will agree with me that I've had no problem running various issues, big and small, and everything in between with him and his department. And, him and Benji and everybody else over there have done an excellent job of addressing, issues throughout District 11. We've got plenty of projects that we, got, little plaques on the wall that we've completed. We've got several others that are in the works, and we're doing a lot of good stuff right now. And every time I receive a complaint from a constituent, whether it's a Facebook message, a text, an email, a call, somebody bumps into me while I'm walking on the street, I send it up to Matt, and I tell him, just let's put this in the list wherever it is, and we always end up getting to it, and you start making progress, chipping away at these issues one at a time. So I think they're doing a great job. I want to echo that sentiment. And in terms of funding and resources and things of that nature, I think we need to look at the stormwater utility fee. I think we need to look at, we floated a drainage bond several years ago, long before my time. I think we ought to maybe look at that again, especially as we're talking about doing some additional, 9-figure projects on the peninsula. Making sure West Ashley, James Island, Johns Island, et cetera, gets a fair share of that. We do it all together as a team. I think it's going to be very important, because you don't need to do $100 million projects in our area, right, Councilman Larry? I mean, the burden is not as high. I mean, a few $1,000,000 in each of our districts off the peninsula can go an enormous way, and we're seeing that take shape currently. So I think we need to have an all of the above approach on these issues and start nipping away at the problem, and we'll keep making great progress. I mean, think about how far we've come in the last 5-6 years or so. I mean, we're really in a way just getting started in the city of Charleston. I know it's crazy to say. You'd think a city, located where we are would have been at this generations ago, but we really weren't for a long period of our history. So we've made great strides, and I look forward to what's coming in the future.
Thank you, Councilman G.A.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I didn't hear clearly, but Matt, are you advocating, and you will certainly get my support for this if you are, to increase that small project fund significantly? I don't know if that's in our budget proposal, but you've got enough projects out there to justify the quote unquote small projects. And the other comment I'll make, Mr. Chairman, and you and I have had these discussions, and I have with Matt as well. The other issue that we're facing with these areas that are at high risk include those ditches that run on the back property lines that are shared with the backyards of several residents in West Ashley. And what has happened, or what has not happened, is the maintenance of those back lines for decades, to the point that, and Matt and I have been wrestling with these issues over in Ashley Hall Manor and Charlestown Estates, is that we are not able to locate our easements on these properties, and we're not comfortable that we in fact do have the authority to go back and clean out these ditches. And that takes money to get the surveys out there. And then once we are confident we have the ability of doing that legally, it's a different kind of apparatus you need to clean those ditches out. You can't take a backhoe back there, or these this heavy equipment that I see that we're using down in Northbridge. That's another expense that we have to sort of be looking at to take care of some of these high risk areas in our older neighborhoods.
Okay. Mr. Fountain, I'll let you respond. Well, before you do, I think the actual money part, Mr. Fountain can tell us how much, but I actually believe that to fix a lot of these gravity flow areas, I think you need between 10, 15, maybe as much as $20 million when you go between West Ashley, James Island, and Johns Island. And it's not a $1 or $2 or $3 or $4 million deal to do that. So I just need to find a mechanism to be able to do that in a broad way. Mr. Fountain.
Mr. Chairman, you're correct. I mean, it certainly, when you start to add up all of the areas we could do small scale improvement projects, it does become expensive, even though each individual project is relatively small. I mean, the main challenge right now, honestly, for us is with the $1 million a year, we're just barely kind of being able to spend that per year right now with staffing. We're pretty short on project managers at the moment. So we certainly could add more revenue, but we don't actually have to add new project manager positions. We just have to be able to hire for the existing vacant project manager positions we have in order to be able to spend that additional funding. So that's, it is staffing right now that really is the big hang up. I mean, we could certainly add more funding into the projects if we can fill those staffing positions. But
Mr. Fountain, hold your point right there. You've been advertising for those staffing positions approximately how long?
So the
project managers specifically.
So, yeah, Mr. Chairman, we had one of them has been open for 9 months. The other one was actually just a gentleman who's resigning this month, so it'll become open in the next week or so.
Okay. Okay, good. And the salary at which we can attract people is what in that position?
So it's a good question, Mr. Chairman. There's different there's different experience pathways similar to many professions that have different correlating salary amounts. For engineers with licensing right now, you are typically looking somewhere between 90 to 110 is about where the industry is sitting. That's not the highest paying, certainly, but it's competitive enough to be attracting quality candidates for a public sector position where people want to kind of serve the public.
Okay. And the position that I don't want us to be in, the mayor or 13 council members, if we're out there advertising at 85,000, we're not going to really get anything. And 12 months later, we haven't given you the tools or ammunition to truly recruit effectively. And I see that as being the mayor and just council appropriates. Okay. Having a position open on another conversation, I think it was recreation and our budget ad hoc committee. I think they were looking for a plumber for 3 years. So obviously the amount that we advertise is insufficient. So you got the frustration of not having the manpower. You got money sitting there in a budget line item and no production. Anyway, I cut across you, but I hear you loud and clear. Any other questions from council members? If you want to continue, Mr. Fountain, if I cut across you, I apologize.
The only other comment I'd make, Mr. Chairman, and it's an interesting one that has certainly come up in this committee a number of times, is that right now we focus our project efforts and our maintenance efforts on city jurisdiction streets.
Right.
We've worked pretty closely with the county trying to do some, in the town of James Island, actually more recently, trying to do some collaborative project work where we have those intersecting jurisdictions. The one area we don't do a tremendous amount of work on other than our larger capital projects where we are a partner is with DOT. Councilwoman Parker mentioned a number of streets that are DOT streets. We have not yet gotten to where we're taking on maintenance, rehabilitation, or other activities within those roadways. And DOT certainly, they've been a good partner lately. They've the last few years they've worked with our priorities, with the staffing that they have. It's a very different approach than they've had historically. I think we've built a really good relationship, especially with the large capital projects. They've been a great partner on encroachment permitting and work within those corridors. But that is when we're talking about our budgeting, we generally don't project or budget out for that type of work. We do generally focus on the the city streets and then, work with DOT to prioritize areas where we need to. But that is a separate challenge that I think we're all familiar with.
Okay, what about these outfalls, in particular the one off of Savannah Highway that goes underneath the Greenway and then eventually out into the Stono? Where are we on that? And Councilwoman Parker, I come to you right after Mr. Fountain responds.
Yeah, that's a great question, Mr. Chairman. So we had worked for the last roughly 5 years between the county, the city, DHEC, the Army Corps of Engineers, and actually a number of other municipalities and counties along the coastal communities, trying to find a way to work through the permitting process more efficiently for outfall cleaning. Traditionally, it's looked at as like a dredging activity, and it's a major permitting effort to go through it that generally takes a couple of years just for the permit reviews, much less putting together the data to submit for the permit. The DHEC and the Army Corps did come out at the beginning of this year, or early this year, I should say, with a new, what they call a regional permit. It's not quite a nationwide because it's focused in the area, but it's similar to a nationwide permit where it's supposed to have a simplified application process. We've been going back and forth with them for kind of an education process on how to do that. We've actually been just talking with consultants over the last couple of months to put together our first template. The county is also doing the same thing with some consultants, put together their first template approach. So we're very optimistic that starting this fall, we will be in a much smoother pathway towards being able to go back and reestablish a lot of these outfalls. Of course, it is relatively expensive work at the moment with hydro excavation, which is why we've looked to try to staff up our factor truck crews as well. But it is something that has a huge impact on certain neighborhoods when those channels become impacted and the water can't drain. You can clean all of the ditches you want or the pipes you want, but if the water can't get out that last pipe or that last ditch into the marsh, it'll back up and cause real problems.
And you see, Mr. Fountain, I think the frustration that you have with that, and we have with the mayor has with that, we have with that, I don't think we ought to suffer in silence anymore. When we have a storm potentially bearing down on us right now, you would think a peninsula city would have all outfalls open. And we can't do that because of obviously these governmental bodies. I actually think we ought to let the people know that if necessary. I think we need to go to court. I mean, the idea that one of the problems with East Oak Forest and West Oak Forest in that area, and thank you for having your men out there last week, by the way. Some of those ditches are open. I watch the water flowing, but it backs up from that same main drainage area between the church and the bikeway over there off of Savannah Highway, underneath Savannah, and it's a domino effect into those neighborhoods, which eventually back up into some people's homes over there. And at the end of the day, you're right. If these outfalls out there, when hurricanes come, if we can't open the doggone outfalls, then what's the justification for them saying no? And they need to be put on the spot, not us going back and telling neighbors we got a outfall that's 50% of capacity, and they won't let us clean it. I think we ought to push the envelope on it. And if they tell us no, that's one thing, but we put forth our best efforts for our people. Ms. Parker, you had your hand up.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, sir. So, and thank you, Mr. Fountain. So yes, that is exactly, why I'm kind of pushing for these, we have an intergovernmental meeting coming up. I mean, this is exactly why these entities, especially on James Island, need to be in the same room having these conversations, right? So we can make sure that if it's we own the street, they own the ditch, someone owns the outfall, because a lot of meetings I'm in, I mean, Battery Island is one example, everybody's pointing the finger at me, the city, and then maybe Signal Point is a different situation. But so this is why I really am pushing for that. We have that James Island intergovernmental, and, I'd appreciate it too, if that's the case on some of these issues, some of the, let's say, items on my list, if in particular, Mr. Fountain, you specify that there may be some that, I mean, I think someone from the county, I can't think of his name right now. I'm sorry. Again, I'm not in front of my computer, but he is looking for updates on some of these projects. And I think if we can continue, can everyone still hear me?
Sure, we can hear you fine.
Okay. sorry, I just have some feedback. So if we can just supply some up-to-date information and just make sure that we're giving as much as we can to them, and so that I can push or, make sure that whatever we need them to do, I can do that. But I do, I just really encourage you, help me help you, let me know what I need to tell the county or the state or DOT, whoever, because I'm really working hard in meeting with these individuals and seeing what we can do, and not just for James Island, but learning, how to help the rest of the city as well. But so please let me know, those are, if you know of specifics, or make sure that you're following up with the county. And again, I encourage the James Island Intergovernmental is a great way to sort of spread the word to all these municipalities. So thank you.
Okay. Any last comments on that? Mr. Mayor, any input after kind of hearing some of what we had to say?
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember, Mr. Chairman, for bringing this to the committee, and
You're welcome.
And listening to everyone's comments. As I've mentioned, I think the highest priority, of course, would be a situation of life, but next would be protecting people's property, particularly when water gets in someone's home. And I know we mentioned some neighborhoods here where that has happened, but the more specific we can be down to the address and the owner, so that Matt and our team can meet with individual owners to help address whatever is at the root cause. That's most helpful. And as we've discovered, sometimes that's a case, as Councilmember Shade pointed out, that we don't have the easements to do the cleaning, and Councilmember Appel tackled that one directly over in my neighborhood in the Crescent nearby to get some of those easements in place. So the more specific we can get, and go after those problem areas and specific areas, home addresses, the better. I had written down how the design of our stormwater systems matter, and boy, have we seen that in the city. I think often of how we never get many complaints from Daniel Island because they designed the system,
correctly. Yeah, you're right.
Modern today's specifications, and we've got this hodgepodge out there all over the city, areas that were might have been originally in the city 200 years ago or more, and then areas that got built that we annexed and didn't have to comply with the city requirements at the time. So we all recognize that, but there's a real hodgepodge, and sometimes you're right, Mr. Chairman, the pipes aren't big enough. They need to be resized, and we have to prioritize those little projects as to the impact that they can have to help our citizens, to help the most for the best bang for our buck. And I think we really have been doing that over the last few years, and we've been able to fund some of those small projects. We added an extra $1 million, I believe, this past year with ARPA funds to be able to do that. But getting that design right in the first place is critical. And now that we have updated stormwater requirements, both for new development and redevelopment, I think that's an important part of the puzzle. And I'll commend Matt and his stormwater team, even though, we're still years away from doing the entire inventory of ditches in the whole system, because we all admit that for decades they weren't being serviced at all. And
right.
We started a thoughtful, comprehensive plan. I forget how many miles and miles Matt has reported on that to us before, but I would just say and correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, that we did prioritize those neighborhoods and ditches that were those that had known flooding in them, and that perhaps if we are continuing to get reports, that we ought to work into that long-term schedule to, even though it may take a little longer to get to some of the neighborhoods that aren't flooding, to make sure that we come back around, you know, on a more frequent basis to those areas of known flooding. And I think you do something like that, but if not, we certainly should be thinking about it.
You know, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I actually think we need to have two categories where we need easements, but the areas that we do have easements, those are the ones I think most can have the most immediate impact. And there's no doubt about it. We've been dealt a bad hand for decades, but you know, we ran for the seats. Time for us to go above and beyond it. People want water out. We got to find a way, just like Councilmember Bell said, to get the revenue to get it done. Listen, it's been a good conversation. I appreciate everybody's input, but again, on the other side, need action steps. So those addresses, in particular, I think addresses will help, and those areas that we need to secure easements in, we need to get a strategy to move forward on that as well. Any final comments, Mr. Fountain? By the way, I see where, you know, I come in obviously across the LeGree Bridge all the time. And man, that pump house or whatever it is, it's rising up pretty fast over there in between the two bridges. And it's looking good over there. So, any time on that, when that's supposed to be, I guess, ready for the pumps?
So the gravity component of that system, Mr. Chairman, should be functioning by the end of the year, which will significantly improve drainage along the Holsepton-Clark corridor. The pump station construction will start next year following that completion of the gravity system and continue really into and through 2024 and probably very early 2025 with the delivery time on the pumps and the diesel engines, basically the power of the pumps.
Right. It's looking good though. It looks like something good's happening. I'll tell you that.
There'll be a big improvement by the end of the year in drainage.
Right. Listen, thanks a lot. There are no final comments. By acclamation, we stand adjourned.